Today, I want to talk to you about writing a short response. In other words, one single and complete paragraph. So, there are 7 steps to writing a short response or a single complete paragraph. The first is that you must read and gather good information. So, you guys did this every single night. You annotated, you took notes, you filled out test review organizers, so you should have really good information. Secondly, you need to examine the question or prompt carefully. Third, write a very clear and concise claim. 4, gather the best evidence. 5, make a plan. 6, write. 7, read and edit. So, here we go. I do want to warn you, do not attempt to write off the top of your head. It doesn't work. It really doesn't. I know you think you know what you're going to say, but in the end, it just doesn't come out that way. So please plan, and make a good plan and then write. So you have been warned. All right, step 1, read and gather good information. So I want you to annotate in ways that help you identify key ideas and topics and changes in characters. I want you to find your own way, which is meaningful to you, so that you can locate information quickly. In a test taking situation, many people find it useful to read the prompt before beginning to read, so you know kind of what you're looking for as you go along. Second, you need to examine the question or prompt carefully. So I listed the 5 prompts you had this past week. The first is compare and contrast Anne's relationship with her mother to that of her father. The question is, why is she closer to one than the other? Question 2, compare and contrast the relationship between Anne and Peter at the beginning and later on at the end of the excerpts. Here's the question. What does Anne's relationship with Peter ultimately teach Anne about herself? Question 3, compare Anne and Margot. How do their differences cause problems? Question 4, compare and contrast Anne at the beginning and at the end of the excerpts. What statement can you make about her growth? Question 5, Anne states, I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are truly good at heart. Do you agree or disagree with her statement? So your response must answer the question, be clear and concise, arguable and provable. So step 3 is to write a very clear and concise claim. And I found these definitions online. A claim is a statement that asserts a belief or a truth. Most claims require supporting evidence. A second person said a claim is clear, specific, arguable, and answers a question or problem. All right, so it really does need to have supporting evidence. Otherwise, it's simply a statement. So here are some claims that I took from your work as I started to go over some of the responses. So one claim is Anne grew as a person throughout her time in the annex. That is a true statement, or it is simply a statement. Is it arguable? Is there a simple point you are proving? So my question would be, how did Anne grow? Here's a second example that came from another student. Anne's relationships with her mother and father were very different. That is a statement, not a claim. How were the relationships different? That must be defined in order to be a claim. Here's a third example. Throughout the excerpts from Anne Frank's diary, the reader is able to see how Anne changed from the beginning of her diary entries to the end. And my question still is, how did Anne change? All right, so you must define that here in this to see how Anne changed. So here are some changes. I went from Anne grew as a person throughout her time in the annex to Anne matured from being a conceited girl to one who is considerate of others. All right, so now we know how she changed. Here was the second student's example. Anne's relationship with her mother and father were very different. 2, although Anne had a cold relationship with her mother, it's not so good. She Although Anne had a cold relationship with her mother, but a loving, that's bad. So scratch that. 3, throughout the excerpts from Anne Frank's diary, the reader is able to see how Anne changed from the beginning of her diary entries to the end. I added, Anne was very childish in the beginning of the excerpts, but grew into a thoughtful young woman during her time in hiding. The first and the third are provable statements. The second, throw away. Sorry. Okay, so to end this whole idea, a claim is not a statement. A statement is the act of stating or declaring something that is factual. A claim is a sentence that can be argued. Evidence can be found to prove or disprove this sentence. It is very important to write a claim and not to write a statement. Otherwise, we almost have nothing to refer back to when we are analyzing our evidence. So that was your hashtag warning number 2. So step 4 is find the best evidence and make a plan. I sort of combined those. The claim I wrote was throughout the time Anne kept her diary, she grew from a conceited girl to one with maturity and empathy. So I found 2 pieces of evidence. And the first one I wanted to show that she's a conceited girl. And my second piece of evidence, I want to show that she's mature and empathetic. So in the beginning of the excerpts, Anne said, I have a throng of admirers who can't keep their adoring eyes off me and who sometimes have to resort to using a broken pocket mirror to try and catch a glimpse of me in the classroom. So does that show conceit? I highlighted the parts that show conceit. In the end of the excerpts, Anne said, I see the world being slowly transformed into a wilderness. I hear the approaching thunder that one day will destroy us too. I feel the suffering of millions. And yet, when I look up at the sky, I somehow feel that everything will change for the better, that this cruelty too shall end. I highlighted parts that show her to be mature and empathetic. So my evidence matches my claim, so I feel like I can go forward and make a plan. So in this whole idea of Texas Access or Texas, I just simply input my evidence into the 2 X's and my T into my topic sentence or my claim. So I've got the building blocks for a paragraph. Now I need to fill in the other pieces. So my next step is to simply write. I need to fill in the blanks. I need to explain my claim in terms of the text. That's the E. I need to give my quotes, my evidence, some context so they make sense. I need to analyze the quotes, making sure the analysis refers back to the claim. And then I need to summarize the whole paragraph. So let's take a look at what I did. So I keep my topic sentence. And then I highlighted conceited girl so that we know that the analysis is going to go back to, and I highlighted maturity and empathy. So again, we can see they are connected. We already agreed in the previous couple slides ago that the evidence did show conceit, and the evidence here did show maturity. So I'm explaining my topic sentence or my claim. So my claim is throughout the time Anne kept her diary, she grew from a conceited girl to one with maturity and empathy. I'm going to explain what I mean. During the 2 years Anne was able to keep a diary, the reader is able to watch her grow, mature, and develop as a normal teen would, even though she was in captivity hiding amidst the war. So let's add some context to the evidence. And here's the context. Just before Anne went into hiding, she reports on how others see her. So I know I'm going to change that as I write my essay or my paragraph. So that's the context. She states, I have a throng of admirers who can't keep their adoring eyes off me and who sometimes have to resort to using a broken pocket mirror to try and catch a glimpse of me in the classroom. Here's my analysis. In this short statement, that's this, as she begins her documented journey, one can see that Anne believes others worship her. Worship goes to conceited. It seems like a gross exaggeration that anyone would use a broken pocket mirror to glance at her. This statement makes her seem very arrogant. Arrogant and conceited go together. So I added a transition, the word later, and then I wanted context. In one of Anne's final entries, 2 years later, Anne reflects, quote, I see the world being slowly transformed into wilderness. I hear approaching thunder that one day will destroy us too. I feel the suffering of millions, and yet when I look up at the sky, I somehow feel that everything will change for the better, that this cruelty too shall end. Here's my analysis. Years later, after living in fear while hiding, talking to and quarreling with her parents and others, and writing in her journal, the reader can see that Anne has learned to look beyond herself and see the suffering of others, and yet she feels a sense of hope that her generation will create change. So, maturity and empathy, looked beyond herself, maturity, see the suffering of others, maturity and empathy, and feels a sense of hope that her generation will create change. I am referring in my analysis back to this idea. So my summary, it looks like it was cut off here. We'll see it in the Word document. So here's the summary. As fortuitous readers, we are able to witness a firsthand account of World War II and Anne's growth from a narcissistic girl to a young, thoughtful woman amidst the world of turmoil around her. I wish I could see the bottom. Let's stop there, and then, as you'll notice, I made mistakes. And you will too, and that's totally normal, and it's part of writing. So we want to leave time to read and edit both grammar and punctuation where we can. So here is my Word document. And I did make some changes from one to another. So throughout the time Anne kept her diary, she grew from a conceited girl to one with maturity and empathy. That's the claim. It answers the question, is arguable and provable. Here's explain. During the 2 years Anne Frank was able to keep her diary, the reader is able to watch her grow, mature, and develop as a normal teen would, even though she was in captivity, hiding amidst the war. That explains my topic sentence. Here is some context. Just before Anne went into hiding, Anne reports on how others see her. She writes, and here's the quote, I have a throng of admirers who can't keep their adoring eyes off me, and who sometimes have to resort to using a broken pocket mirror to try and catch a glimpse of me in the classroom. So that evidence talks about how she is conceited. Here's the analysis for that piece of evidence. In this short statement, as she begins her documented journey, one can see that Anne believes others worship her. It seems like a gross exaggeration that anyone would use a broken mirror to glance at her. The statement makes her seem very self-centered and arrogant. Transition and context. 2 years later, in one of Anne's final entries, Anne reflects and writes, I see the world being slowly transformed into a wilderness. I hear the approaching thunder that one day will destroy us too. I feel the suffering of millions, and when I look up at the sky, I somehow feel that everything will change for the better, that this cruelty too shall end. So again, the evidence shows her to be mature and empathetic. The analysis should explain that. Years later, after living in fear while hiding, talking to and quarreling with her parents and others, and writing in her journal, the reader can see that Anne has learned to look beyond herself and see the world around her and suffering of others, yet she feels a sense of hope that her generation will create change. So the analysis explains how the example proves she is mature as she looks beyond herself, shows that change from being self-centered to mature and empathetic. Here's the summary, which should refer back to my claim and sum it all up. As fortuitous readers, we are able to witness a first-hand account of World War II and Anne's growth from a narcissistic girl to a thoughtful young woman amidst the world of turmoil around her. All right, so that is one clear, concise, organized paragraph or short response. So In this lesson, you have learned how to write a short response. We need to start by reading and gathering good information. Then we examine the question or prompt carefully. Third, we need to write a very clear and concise claim. 4, you must gather the best evidence. 5, make a plan. 6, write. 7, read and edit. Knowledge, my friends,